You hear the screeching of an owl, you hear the wind begin to howl. You know there's zombies on the prowl. And it's terror time again. They've got you running through the night. It's terror time again. And you just might die of fright. It's a terrifying time.
Hello everyone, in today's video we're getting our snack on. We're diving into those food mods today. We're gonna forge up some loot to snack on and keep us alive and well. But before we begin, I want to give a shout out to the lovely Foxfire for her fantastic artwork as usual. Now let's dive into the woodline and scavenge up some noms, shall we? You ever think, why the hell can I only find berries when the world's just filled with all sorts of fruit that you could scavenge up in real life? Well, thanks to the Wild Fruits mod by Mattus27, there's 7 new fruit added to the world. That's right. You could forage the backwoods of Kentucky for a bunch of wild fruit that you'd be able to find in real life, including the American plum, black cherries, blackberries, raspberries, mulberries, wild apples, and wild grapes. That's a nice variety of new fruit added, and what's even better is they can be added to fruit salads and cakes too, so they can even complement vanilla recipes. Now, to even find these new fruits, you have to have a minimum of level 2 in foraging, and the mod tops out at level 6 of foraging. But once you got that level 6, you'll be eating pretty good, and the other benefit is the fact that these fruits aren't poisonous, and you don't need the herbalist to know which ones won't hurt you. Overall, it's a short and simple mod, but it fills that need to feed nicely. And the creator actually plans to add fruit that grows specifically in winter to give some further variety to what you could forage. This is definitely a boon, as the winter months can get pretty slim pickings food-wise. Good job, mate. Keep up the good shit. Are you a big fan of Fallout, or you just wish you had more fizz in your game? Do you want your pee to glow blue due to a radioactive isotope? Well, thanks to Soul Filter, we have the Nuka Cola Collection mod. With this mod, you have access to 11 different varieties of fizzy gut and teeth-rotting goodness. Each bottle of soda has its own unique sprite and 3D model in-game, as well as a unique bottle cap or cork for each type, which is pretty cool. Now, you will want to drink these sparingly due to their high calorie count, but they also satisfy hunger, thirst, unhappiness, and fatigue really effectively. So they are the perfect pick-me-up save for a rainy day event. Now if you want to find these, be sure to check your local shops, gas stations, even fridges and cupboards. If it spawns food of this variety, scavenge it for every last drop of the fizz. Overall, I like the mod, and the drinks seem just uncommon enough to not be overpowered with how effective they are as a status reliever. Nice job, Soul. I like your work, mate. You ever find yourself running low on salt into the late game, desperately craving that sodium that your body needs to make that drab meal just a bit more bearable? Then head to the subreddit. I'm sure you'll find plenty of salt. Nah, I'm joking. Thanks to RadX5, we have the Salt Rocks mod. Finally, a source of renewable salt. I feared I didn't have enough shakers for my collection. To make use of this mod, you'll need level 5 foraging, and once you have this level, you'll be able to obtain salt rocks. Obtain 10 salt rocks, grind them down with a mortar and pestle, and bam, you got that salty goodness. Keep in mind that to find the salt rocks, you'll have to have the materials tab chosen for your foraging focus, and you'll be able to find all the click-clack salt rocks your heart desires. Just don't question where the shaker comes from. Nobody knows. Maybe the gods gifted you a resolve for a small boon in your quest for salt. Overall though, thanks Rad. I appreciate the source of salt. Now the only thing we need is a way to grow and refine peppercorn so I can have pepper to go with my forest salt. Do you got a sweet tooth that only pure sweet sugar could satisfy? You need to bake a cake or just want to make that expired coffee just a bit more tolerable? Well, thank the Rad X5 again, we've got the Make Sugar from Foraging and Refining mod. Ain't that a mouthful? Long title aside, this is like the Salt Rocks mod. It provides you a source of renewable sugar, but instead of rocks, this time it's in the form of processed sugar beets. Once again, you have to be level 5 in foraging, and once you have this, you'll be able to dig up sugar beets. Get 10 of them and you'll be able to make some sugar. But before you can even do this, you'll have to find the Sweet Beets and Sugar Feeds magazines found in bookshelves and home. And then once you got it, you'll be able to process the beets. Now that you've got your 10 beets, slice them up, add them to a pot of water, mash the mixture up good with a mortar and pestle on a ripped sheet, and let the mixture dry. Once dry, you can extract all the sugary sweet goodness. And while this mod's definitely more complicated than the Salt Rocks mod, refining plants into sugar is a more complex task than grinding salt rocks into a smaller crystal. Also, be sure to keep in mind the drying process can be rather lengthy, and you can also eat the sugar beets in a desperate situation for a small boost of hunger, but they'll drastically nuke your thirst levels. This mod overall does what it says on the tin, does it well, and I like it. Thanks again, RadX, for another simple, sweet, and useful mod, mate. Are you craving some bread, but you don't got the yeast to make the dough? And you've cleaned out your local town, you don't want to risk exploring the nearby towns for fear of being caught slipping? Well, RadX once again has our back with another mouthful of a mod title, the Make Yeast from Foraging and Refining mod. You know the deal by this point. You want some yeast to make dough? Well, you're gonna have to find the All About Yeast magazine, which will let you refine wild yeast wheat that you find via foraging with at least level 5 foraging. Now, once you've got 5 wild yeast wheat, you can grind it down into wild yeast grains. Combine this with a jar, a lid, and 2 units of water, and you'll have a jar of yeast. Give it 5 days and it'll become mature yeast, and you'll be ready to make that yeast into all the bread you could desire. Another nice thing is for the cost of 3 wild yeast grains, that's 15 wheat total, you'll allow you to grind it down further in the flour, which is also nice if you need the flour for baked goods. Overall, it's another simple, sweet, and very useful mod. It helps keep some sustainability and variety into the late game. Thanks again, Rad. I really like your work. You ever find yourself running preciously low on meat as fall and winter come on, and the normal sources of meat start to dry up, with all the scavenged sources having been eaten or rotten long ago? Well, thanks to Dangalong, we have the Cure Wild Meat mod. This mod will allow you to cure and jerky meats to preserve them to have a much longer shelf life, keeping it good up to 60 to 90 days. Now to do this, you'll need any sort of wild meat you can butcher, such as wild birds, frogs, rats, rodents, or fish that you filleted. Now once you have your meat of choice, get your jar of salt ready and salt that meat. Once the meat's salted, bake it in the oven. Keep in mind this will take longer than usual, so grab a skill book and get learning while that meat's preserved. Once you've done that, you'll have food with significantly longer shelf life. Now if you choose to eat it by itself, it does come with a +10 thirst modifier, and it also has slightly lower nutrition levels than usual due to the salting process. But if you combine it with regular foods that make, say, roast or stews or any manner of other meals, you can remove some of the negatives while still keeping the positives of slow rotting meat. Overall, Dangalong, you made a nice and useful mod. Thank you, mate. I think this just about wraps up everything I set out to target today. Now you have more food and foraging mods at your disposal to keep yourself running into the late game. To all the mod creators, especially RadX5, keep up the good work. I love shining a spotlight on these mods and letting people know about your fantastic works. Now I'd like to thank Foxfire once again for our artwork for today's video, and thank you for supporting the content. This has been Core, and I'll see you next time.